Mícheal Ó Muircheartaigh, good morning to you. Can I talk to?
And I'm looking out at the bluest sky I ever saw. Not even a fleck or a spot of any colour, but a lovely blue in the sunshine.
A nice bit of blue sky thinking for us all this morning is what we're looking for, Mícheal, because we've given Owen a very grave responsibility, and that's to pick the 4 greatest Kerry sports people of all time. And we feel like you might be able to help us to just shape some of his thoughts. When you were asked a little bit about this, where did your thoughts first go?
Well, I began to think about the whole thing, and Kerry is a great sporting county. Only 8 counties have won All-Irelands in football and hurling. Now, that makes them a unique bunch. They're in sport ever. But I began to look much further than Ireland after a while. I know that you could fill all the mountains in Kerry with great names, sporting names. A sporting name that came to my name, John Pius Mary Boland. Very few would have heard of him. He was a barrister born in Capel Street in Dublin, finished up going to Oxford and Cambridge and all those places, and he qualified as a barrister. To celebrate having passed his exams and everything, he went on a holiday to Greece, and it happened to be the opening of the Olympic Games, the revival of the Olympic Games in 1896. And one day he happened to see a notice, tennis competition on such a day, you're all welcome. He went along and he won the senior tennis singles championship there and got his medal for it. Sometime later that day he met some German person, he had maybe known him in college or something, and he said, there's doubles on tomorrow, could the two of us play? And they won the doubles as well. So he had 2 All-Ireland medals. But he was a Dublin man, but the link with Kerry is as follows. There was a by-election for a seat in the House of Commons, an MEP, in South Kerry. And they were debating as long as almost the political parties are now, who will we select? Somebody got an idea. How about that man from Dublin with 2 medals? Now, nobody knew him. He had never been to Kerry, but he was unanimously nominated and went to the House of Commons or wherever they go, the House of Lords. And he was there until 1918 when they were swept out of power. But he was there in Kerry, and his daughter represented. He was in All-Ireland later. So he was a sportsman. He had a great connection with Kerry. I thought the like of him should not be left out. Who could pick anyone connected with sport or adventure than Tom Crean? I thought of Tom Crean. And I remember one time Brian Mullins of Dublin meeting him, and straight away we didn't discuss football first at all. And he said, the greatest Kerry man that was ever born is Tom Crean. He said, I've read the book, I've studied it, I went here and there to find more information. And when Tom Crean, in one of his 3 exhibitions to Antarctica, one time when the great boat, the Endurance, surrounded by ice, getting stronger by the day, it was being crushed and crunched until eventually it went down. They had rescued their camera, they had rescued their lifeboats, and here they were left. And while they were wondering, how will we get out of here, Tom Crean was seen playing football on the ice in Antarctica. So he has to be put in as a sports person, but a great person. There are so many people. You could talk about putting in Mary Jo Curran, 10 senior lady football All-Irelands and 10 All-Stars. Where could you get a match like that? Kerry won that hurling away back in 1891, and names like Skelper Quorn, he was in everyone's list, always anyone. Nuala Moore, you know, she's a nice swimmer. She was a member of that relay team that went from the Bering Strait and Siberia and Russia right across to Alaska. Now, it was a relay team, swam it all, and she's been swimming everywhere. Great mention of her deeds in the Guinness Book of Records. We could go on and on forever, and we'd get lists, and we mightn't have a Rushmore mountain, but you'll get a mountain or someplace in Kerry where all those people from abroad who had links with Kerry, and of course Kerry footballers. You'd need a hell of a mountain to put on all the worthy players. So it's a wonderful idea, and I think it's worth pursuing. can be set later where the centre will be, but I was delighted to hear about it.
Can I ask you about the team of the 80s? And poor Owen is obviously, you know, it's a folk memory in many respects of which of those players was the best. And, you know, so TG Carr put on the Paddy O'Shea documentary last night. I think they were trying to lead the witness. I'm not going to lie. I think that there's no coincidence with the timing of the documentary, but it was a beautiful piece of filmmaking. And Paddy was such an iconic figure because obviously he ends the famine as well. But
he was an iconic figure before he ever put on a Kerry jersey. From the day he was born, I saw little shots of him, maybe as a 4-year-old with the football, trying to get past the young others. All his life he was bound up by football. But the 82 final between Kerry and Offaly, that was one of the finest All-Ireland finals that were ever played. And a lot of people go to All-Ireland finals, they don't go to see a particular team, they go to see a good match. They hope to see a good match. They'd be neutrals in a way. That was a great match. Both teams went out to play football. Now, Paddy was there that day. They had won 4 in a row, but the day they were going for 5 in a row, didn't work out. Offaly got a late goal. They won it. Their name is on the list, and there was a very, very good interview given by Mick O'Dwyer right after that. He was full of praise for Offaly, full of praise for the football that was produced during the game. So to be very hard to pick one. And at this moment, I wouldn't pick one. I had to deliberate on that. I think it's unfair to pick one person. They were a team in every sense of the word. Offaly were a brilliant team that day. So I don't know. There were so many of them there. They were always a team. And they had won their 4 in a row. 82 was a tough year for them. A big trip to America and New Zealand the autumn before that. Then the Munster final was a draw. They were in the league final. That was a draw. They had 2 extra games, but they were there. But in the end, it was Offaly got the goal. It was Offaly that took the Sam Maguire, and they're celebrating that ever since.
Of course.
And I have seen Kerry win 21 All-Ireland. They've won many since then. You know, and they come in waves. Good teams, great respect. Anyone that wears the Kerry jersey in Croke Park on a big day, that's a big name forever. You could name several. You mentioned Kieran Donaghy there. I'm sure he'll never forget when he stepped out onto Croke Park for the first time playing for the Kerry seniors in the green and gold. It's a great day for the players. It's a great day for their people, for the followers in Kerry, parents and friends, the lot. Great occasions there.
Can I ask you, Mícheal, about 2 players in particular from that team of the 80s as well? That I just want Owen to get a sense of how spectacularly gifted they were. It's Pat Spillane and it's Jack O'Shea. I feel like both of their reputations, just with time, have become overshadowed by other things. But Jack O'Shea might have been the greatest footballer of all time.
Well, he might have been. He was that. Any player that played in 8 All-Ireland finals, played at midfield in all of them, won 7 of them. That's a great record. 3 under-21 All-Irelands, a minor All-Ireland and so on. And he went out to play football. You know, they all did. People love to see football being played, you know, not fouling or anything like that. He was definitely a great footballer, but if you move back a bit, you had great people. Mick O'Connell came from the same part of the country. South Kerry maybe didn't produce as many All-Ireland players as other areas of Kerry, but what they did produce, they were always top class, going way back to Eamon O'Neill in the early years and right down through the years. Pat Spillane then, he had ferocious, if you like, endurance. He could keep going forever. He was as determined as Paddy O'Shea was. And I often spoke to Pat, and I'll recall one time he was dropped from the Kerry panel eventually. That happens to a lot of people. He had an hour free from class at the time when he got word that he wasn't on the panel for the coming year. And he said to me, it was a shock. I didn't know how to react. I could tell them, go to hell, that I'm as good as anyone. I could say nothing, or I could train like hell and know in the back of my mind they'll be looking for me before the year is out. That's the way it turned out. He took it, he didn't complain, he went and did the extra bits of training himself, and he eventually got a call to come back. So he was a great warrior, you know, he's great stamina. I remember a move he made one time, going up along the sideline, somebody coming towards him to tackle him, threw the ball, let it in play, jumped outside the line, jumped over the camera and picked up the ball again and finished up scoring at the other end of the field. You know, he was a good player, but he wasn't the only good player. You know, they were a team. I always liked the concept of a team.
Yeah, they were unbelievable, Mícheal, absolutely phenomenal. And the amount of tape you watch back, really, I'd say I can't do it justice to obviously being there at the time. But even just to go back a little bit further, and it comes to some of the forefathers of Kerry football, who would be the names that come to your mind if you had to go back to, say, beyond the last century, or just within the last century, when it comes to the greats of Kerry GAA?
Well, the first All-Ireland final that I saw Kerry winning was when they beat Armagh in 1953. That was a good game as well. And lots of good players on the team, you know, a strong team. That was the first All-Ireland played without Dan O'Keefe in goal since 1930. And the All-Ireland final up to then, it was Dan O'Keefe, his era was over. So it was a new team coming on the scene. They played very good football against Armagh. I remember my first glimpse of the game. I had to do a preview in Irish in the GPO from 3:15 until 3:25, and then came like hell on my bicycle, threw it against the wall into the long stand, only to see Malachy McAvoy, a great Armagh footballer, solo up the field and score a goal at the railway end of the ground. So I have great memories of that final as well. It was the first I saw. So they had great players as well. And the captain that time was Jas Murphy. He had played for Cork. He was a Garda down in Cork. He was a big man at cornerback, very strong, the biggest full back line I ever saw. Jas Murphy on the right, Roach in the centre, another big man, square shoulders, and Donny Murphy from Killarney. He was the third man in that line of strong, big men. All in those days, they used to keep their own positions. Get the ball in your own position, win it, and send it on. But we could speak forever about these own, you know, the number of them. We mentioned Nuala Moore and, you know, non-footballers and all that, but you'd put them all in the realms of sport. But 53 and then 55, to this day, I think the All-Ireland final between Kerry and Dublin in 55 was the most hyped final of all time, I think. And it was a great game again, and Kerry won, and Dublin nearly won. Dublin had to be given great credit. Dublin won in All-Ireland in 1958 with 12 players from the one club. It was Vincent and Kevin Heffernan put Dublin on the map, and they struck up a great relationship with Kerry, which went back to 1923, but they had a great final in 55, and they had other ones as well.
Can I ask a question about Mick O'Dwyer as a footballer? Because I think it's part of his career and his talent that actually gets overlooked because he's such an important historical figure as a manager, one of the greatest managers of all time.
Mick O'Dwyer would never be overlooked. Now, the first mention I had of Mick O'Dwyer was an uncle, you know, he won Munster Junior with Kerry a way back, but he was a great judge of footballers. And before Mick hit the Kerry team at all senior level, my uncle, he was married to somebody from Valentia Island, Endemar. She stood for Mick O'Connell when he was baptised. But he saw a junior match the previous Sunday in Killarney, and he said, I saw a fellow playing that should be on the Kerry team. And the Kerry team and the Kerry senior team. And he said, he's Míchael O'Dwyer. Now, I saw him then. He was a person, he played football. He wasn't as noticeable as others. That often happens to people with black hair, which he had at the time. He was left half back. He was perfect ball players. He was a good player to use it. He was a great taking frees. He won four All-Irelands, 2 as a defender, 2 as a forward. He had a terrific career as a footballer. And then as a manager, you know, everybody knows what he did for Kerry. He was in Kildare, he was in Laois. To win a championship, a Leinster championship with Laois, the very first year he was there, he had this magic draw. He never had a lot of, you know, manuals or anything like that. It was all coming out of the head. And he had a great belief in what he was called the wire-to-wire across the field in Killarney. Touched the wire on both ends. Who gets there first? And it was nearly always a defender. But he was a great manager. And there were lots of other good managers as well. You could speak about Kerry sport forever. You wouldn't, nor would the audience, you know, tire of listening to this, that, and the other.
One thing I'm keen to ask you about, Mícheal, is just about the place of Kerry and how much that almost adds to the legend around so many of these characters. Like you talk about Mick O'Dwyer and Mick O'Connell and Mick O'Connell's stories of rowing to the island and back, and how legendary those stories are of Paddy O'Shea and running the roads around the great mountains of Dingle around there. So like, can you put that into context a little bit in terms of how special these areas are and how much they create a mystique around these sporting legends? Yeah,
well, Kerry is it's a strange place. It's a unique place. Now, whether it's true or not, you know, they have great confidence in themselves. And that confidence is a great thing. Hope is a great thing. Kerry always had those two features. It is said when Noah was going out in the ark and passing around, it was water everywhere, until he came to Kerry. And there was this big jutting up in beyond all the water. And lots of people collected there on the mountains of Kerry. Slieve Lucre, they passed by, and then they were on the top of the Quran pool, a big gang of people there. And Noah was passing in the ark, and he stopped and hailed and asked them would they come on board. It must be the captain that spoke. He said, it's only a shower, we're okay here. They are different in their ways of thinking. It's no harm to be different, to be thinking differently. And I think this is a great idea. I don't know who came up with it, having this special place. Top of Carantoul mightn't be a bad place to do carvings and all that, but it's an idea that should be pursued. But Kerry is a different place, you know. How many people have gone to Kerry to find out, to go to Slieve Lucre? But nobody ever found Slieve Lucre. It does exist. I believe it exists, but I never saw it. It is there. It's maybe a state of mind. And I think one thing, neatly put one time by Brian McMahon, when he was talking about Kerry, he said, you cannot beat the kingdom Swede for horse or hound or man. The men would be the people that played football. The women would be involved in it now. Horses, there was a great show-jumping horse came from Listowel one time. He was the talk of the country for horse or hound or man. The hound would be the famous Spanish battleship. No doubt had ever won the Derby on 2 occasions. He did it 3 in a row. And I always say the dog was elected to Dáil Éireann, and the owner took his place. That's the way with it. And I saw him run. First time he ran in Harold's Cross in Dublin, Spanish battleship owned by Chub Connor from Killorglin. You know, he was a great character as well. But that dog went on to win 3 derbies. So Brian McMahon put it well, you cannot beat the kingdom Swede for horse or hound or man. And the story of the kingdom, there's a lot more years in it yet.
Mícheal,
the Coon of Day, we'll see a lot of them.
Exactly. Well, I was just about to ask you, before we let you go, obviously the country has been through a period of lockdown. How have you been getting on?
Well, I'm cocooned, or as we say in Irish, I'm a quaharoo. Quahar is you're comfortable, you know, cosy. That's quahar. And quaharoo then The weather has been fine. I'm out in the middle of the country in County Meath, and it's going very well. What I really like, maybe for the first time ever, the people of Ireland have come together. It's not Kerry, it's not Cork, it's not Donegal. They're all thinking the same. They're helping each other. And the amount of people that are going out of their way to help people who need help, I like all those features. And I think it will change them. And I think that we have a brilliant generation of young people at the moment. Most of them, a very high percentage of the boys and girls, teenagers at the moment, finishing up with their senior education in primary school. I think they're a great generation, and that Ireland will be proud of those yet.
I'll be dead right, Mícheal. And look, it's been great to be able to tap into the wisdom that you've acquired over such a long period of time. I hope you feel like you're a national treasure at this stage, because we definitely feel like we're in the company of one this morning. So thanks a million. August Fain, that's Micheal Ó Muircheartaigh giving us, and young Owen, some guidance there, Owen. So his picks: John Pius, Mary Boland, Tom Crean, Mary Jo Curran and Nuala Moore. Any of these tickling your fancy at the moment, Owen?
Yeah, all of them would have been, Tom Crean is not somebody I'd considered obviously until last Friday when somebody tweeted it. And the candidate is fairly strong in Tom Crean. I think it's fair to say he's not going to make the mountain in the end. I think I was probably a little bit more boring with the sports that I chose. None of my Mount Rushmore will have made it to the South Pole, as far as I'm aware anyway.